I'm never gonna finish this report. If only there was some way I could go back in time and talk to Victor Lowenfeld in person. Maybe then I could get this report finished.
Or maybe I could come to you.
What? Who said that? Where's that voice coming from?
From over here, Timmy.
What? Huh? Huh?
It is I, the ghost of Victor Lowenfeld. I have traversed across time and space and the state of Pennsylvania, all the way here to when I heard your cries for help.
Okay. Well, I don't even know where to start. Can you tell me a little bit about your life?
Of course. I was born in the year 1903 in Linz, Austria. From the early age, I was always fascinated with music and visual arts. I played the violin when I was a child and began painting around the same time. It was an early exposure to the arts that led me to devote my entire life to spreading the influence of the arts to children and young adults all over the world. Once I began my university studies at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, Austria, my path was set in stone. Although I found the school itself to be very dry and academic, during this time I also had the opportunity to do what I loved and teach art to children in elementary schools. During my time at university, I was given the task from one of my professors to sculpt clay while I was blindfolded. Wanting to learn more about his curious approach, I took a visit to the Vienna Institute for the Blind. I became so fascinated with this unique form of education that I went on to become a staff member at that very same institute. It was during this time that I came into contact with Sigmund Freud. He had heard of my work at the Institute for the Blind, and meeting him inspired me to take a new approach to my field of work. From that point forward, I decided to take a much more scientific and psychological approach to art education, finding more tangible evidence to show how art affects a human's early development from children into adults.
But when did you come to the United States and develop your theories on artistic development?
Quiet, Timmy! I'm getting to that if you will just let me talk! After the German invasion of Austria in 1938, myself and my family fled the country, eventually finding ourselves in the United States, where I established myself amongst the artistic and academic communities. I became a professor of psychology at the Hampton Institute in Virginia, where I went on to establish the art program there. In the summer of 1945, I began teaching a few courses at Pennsylvania State University, going on to become the chairman of art education, which is where I stayed until my death in 1960. During my time there is when I developed my views on artistic development in children. I published these views in my book, Creative and Mental Growth, which would become the most influential art education textbook in history. I wanted to create a general roadmap for kinds of art that students create and how their worldviews and self-image mold that art.
In the scribbling stage, children draw simply as an enjoyable kinetic motion. They don't try to recreate the world around them. In the pre-schematic stage, children begin to develop simple representations of their world, usually starting with drawing very basic human forms that only have a head, arms, and legs. The schematic stage is when children establish their ways of portraying their world. Objects begin to have a relation to each other in space. In the gang stage, students will begin to try and draw objects in more realistic ways, beginning to use overlapping to show space and becoming more critical of their work and how it compares to the work of their peers. The pseudo-naturalistic stage is when art is no longer done as a spontaneous activity. Students become very critical of their work and desire to create objects as they are seen in real life, using shading and attempting to create a 3D world on paper. The final stage is the period of decision. This is when students will either desire to further develop their skills or become frustrated with their perceived lack of ability and give up, halting their progress. Students feel that the lack of drawing ability makes them more childlike, which is exactly what they want to move away from. Showing students of this age artwork that is abstract or art that is three-dimensional will help to encourage them to create art that is different than what they are used to.
Wow, this is all great stuff! It sounds like you sure did a whole lot for the field of art education. I would sure like to think so. And while not every art teacher needs to take as much of a psychological approach to their work, having a working knowledge of how students develop will surely be a major asset in creating meaningful, inspirational, and relevant projects for their students. That sure is great! Yep. 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 So,